Hey, what's happening, guys? What is going on? You guys have tuned into Rules for Rebels. Today it's early in the morning on Tuesday, January 24th, 2023. We got a bunch of news to cover today. We got some business stories to share with you guys. We have some stories about the economy, some more layoffs. Spotify has started doing layoffs. We have some stories about the economy and a whole bunch of other stuff to discuss in today's video. Before we hop into today's video, shout out to the sponsor of today's video, Merch Informer. Merch Informer is your all-in-one tool for selling on Amazon Merch and other print-on-demand platforms. Merch Informer has keyword research tools to help you find the best keywords to put on your Amazon Merch t-shirts and other items to make sure that they're found in Amazon searches. They have analytics research tools to help you guys find trending niches and trending shirts that you can piggyback off of. They have trademark protection tools to keep you from uploading shirts that are going to be taken down for trademark infringement. They have a built-in t-shirt designer, automation tools, and a whole lot more. Check out the link in the description box below for merchinformer.com. Now, before we get into today's video, I got a show recommendation for you guys today, and I also have a Shopify app recommendation. The Shopify app recommendation is one that I just recently stumbled upon. It was in beta. I was testing it. It's finally rolled out to the wider public, and it's called Easy Bundles. What Easy Bundles allows you to do, it allows you to create bundles on your Shopify store. So let's say you have like a men's grooming store or a men's accessory store. Maybe you sell like kind of like natural soaps like Dr. Squatch. Maybe you sell like a shampoo, a deodorant, and a beard oil. Now, people can buy multiple items of these on their own, but something that a lot of sellers like to do is create bundles. So you could create something like the ultimate men's grooming bundle, and in this bundle, somebody gets a stick of deodorant, your natural deodorant, they get a couple bars of soap, and they get your shampoo that you sell. Now, there aren't really a lot of good bundling apps out there, and the few that I have tried, one of the problems that they have is they don't treat the products in the bundle as unique pieces of inventory. So if I were to put together this men's ultimate grooming bundle and I sell one of them, one inventory will be deducted for the men's ultimate grooming bundle, but it won't deduct the shampoo, the 3 bars of soap, and the deodorant because it doesn't treat them as individual products. Easy Bundle is the first app that I found that actually does this, and this is important because otherwise you're not going to be able to track your inventory and it's going to throw your inventory off. They also have kind of a neat tool where you can allow people to build their own bundles and then give them discounts for doing so, and you can set it up in 3 stages. So like step 1 could be pick your soaps. Step 2 could be pick your shampoo. Step 3 could be pick your deodorant. And then they wind up creating their own bundle. Really cool app. I haven't seen any other app that's been able to pull this off. So if you are a Shopify store and you're looking for an easy way to put together bundles, highly recommend Easy Bundles. The show recommendation I have for you guys kind of ties into the first story that we're going to be covering in today's video, which is Culver's switching from Pepsi products to Coke products. Not sure if you guys have Culver's. I know Culver's is based out of Wisconsin. It's a burger joint. They're quote unquote famous for their butter burgers. They actually make a really, really good burger. I know Culver's is starting to expand out, but I think it's still somewhat of a Midwest thing. But they recently switched from Pepsi products to Coke products, so I wanted to talk a little bit about the story of how RC Cola, or Royal Crown Cola, became big in Chicago. But that kind of brings me to my show recommendation. Is a show on Hulu. It's called The Bear. It's that kid Lip from Shameless. His brother dies. His brother leaves him his Italian beef stand in Chicago, and Lip comes and the place is a total disaster, and he has to take it over. And previously, he had been like one of the top chefs in the country. So you have this chef going to work in an Italian beef restaurant, kind of on the south side of Chicago. Kind of an interesting show. And it kind of reminded me of this Culver story. It made me think of the RC Cola story, because all the pizza places in Chicago have RC Cola, and it tends to be a lot of the Italian beef shops and hot dog stands, which we're known for, tends to have these as well. But before we get into that story, let's talk a little bit about the markets. The Dow was up. Markets were for the most part up yesterday. Dow was up 254 points. NASDAQ up 0.5%. S&P 500 up 1.19%. Crypto had a hot week last week, but it has kind of continued to trade sideways this week. So let's start with this story for the day. Culver's is switching from Pepsi to Coke. Does anybody actually like Pepsi or Pepsi products? I don't drink much soda at all, period. But if I were going to drink, a soda, it would definitely be Coke and not Pepsi. And obviously, both these soft drinks, fight to get into different restaurants. Think about how much of your product you're going to sell if you're in McDonald's or Burger King or Taco Bell, or in this case, Culver's. But it reminded me of RC Cola. Do you guys have RC Cola in your part of the country? I always thought of RC Cola as being something like very Chicago, though the company is actually based out of Georgia. Kind of an interesting story. Back in the late 1800s, early 1900s, kind of the two main soft drink companies were Coke and Pepsi. Well, I guess this guy who ran a drugstore in some small town in Georgia was buying a lot of Coke, because that's back when drugstores had soda fountains. So this guy had asked Coke if he could get like a kickback or better pricing for all the Coke bottles that he was selling. And Coke told him no. So that really angered him. He said, I'm not going to do any more business with Coke. And he decided to create his own cola company. So he created Royal Crown, which, is what we now know as RC Cola. I believe their first soda was a ginger ale. They then had a cherry cola that I think was called Cherry Cola or something like that. A judge eventually ruled that they were too close, or they were piggybacking off Coke's name, so they made him change the name. But RC Cola, it's never been a main player in the beverage industry, right? It's always been dominated by Coke, Pepsi a close second, and nobody else is really a close third. But RC Cola became really, really huge in Chicago, and I think still to this day, but even more so in the 90s and in the early 2000s. Pretty much every pizza place in Chicago, if you ordered a pizza, you got a free 2-liter of RC Cola. And RC Cola also wound up making its way into a lot of like Italian beef shops and hot dog stands, which Chicago is also known for. Kind of interesting how this happened, and I think there's a couple kind of interesting business lessons about it. So Coke and Pepsi would deliver to grocery stores, and they would do their deliveries to grocery stores in the morning. So if you were a restaurant or if you had a pizza shop, you had to be in your shop for when Coke was doing their deliveries. So, if Coke's out doing deliveries at 6 in the morning, 8 in the morning, 9 in the morning, even if your pizza shop doesn't open till 4 in the afternoon, you would have to go into your pizza shop in the morning to receive your delivery of Coke or Pepsi. Well, what RC Cola did, they decided to put a big focus on pizza places, and they would deliver at convenient times. So the pizza owner wouldn't have to go into the pizza shop at 7 in the morning to receive a delivery of Coke. He could order from RC Cola, and RC Cola would come at 4 o'clock when he was getting into his restaurant, and they would deliver at a time that was convenient for the pizza shop owner. Another thing that they initially did was they had 1 liters when Pepsi and Coca-Cola only had 2 liters, and it was easier for the delivery drivers to carry the 1 liters. So that's how RC Cola became so big in Chicago, and that's kind of the reason that I recommended the show The Bear. That show The Bear is about an Italian beef stand in Chicago. It kind of reminded me of that. But thought that was an interesting story. Culver's switching from Pepsi to Coke, and how many of you guys have Culver's? What area of the country are you in, and do you like Culver's? I don't eat a lot of fast food, but Culver's is pretty tasty. Love their cheese curds. Let's talk a little bit about ChatGPT. ChatGPT can now pass the medical licensing exam as well as the bar exam. Pretty impressive. I saw an interesting article yesterday. Maybe we'll cover this in its own video. I believe this article came from a website called Search Engine Land. You can find it at searchengineland.com. They had an article titled AI Content is Replacing Content Farms. So probably back in the early 2000s to maybe 2010, people had what were called private blog networks, and there were content farms. And what this is before Google's search algorithms were as advanced as they are today. So it was easier to kind of game the system. You could buy a lot of backlinks, and you could stuff a lot of keywords into articles, and you could wind up ranking things on the first page of Google pretty easily. Well, then people started setting up networks of blogs, and these blogs weren't necessarily meant to be read, and they weren't necessarily written for humans. They were basically written to cater to search engines. It was kind of low-quality sites, low-quality articles, but they would rank high, and they would get a lot of clicks, and then people would monetize these sites with either Google AdSense or affiliate offers, or they would use these sites to send traffic to their quote-unquote money sites, right? So you'd have kind of a whole circle of blogs, a whole network of blogs. You'd use these blogs to then direct backlinks and direct traffic to your quote-unquote money site. Their Search Engine Land is kind of making the case that AI content is replacing these content farms. There's a company called Red Ventures, which owns a lot of these popular websites. They own CNET. They own a credit card points website called The Points Guy, bankrate.com, and creditcards.com, among others. All of these sites monetize through credit card affiliate offers. And I guess a lot of their content is written by AI. So if any of you guys are looking to try to start a profitable blog and use ChatGPT, let me know how that's working out for you. Let me know if these articles are actually ranking. Last month, Google actually had 2 updates. They had a spam update, and they also had a helpful content update. Now, what the helpful content update was aiming to do was reward content written by humans for humans, and reward content that was written for people and not search engines. I didn't see a whole lot of movement in traffic or rankings based on that, but that was something that recently went down. And even though a lot of people say, "Oh, AI content, Google can tell, Google's going to crack down on this," it seems that a lot of people are actually having success with using AI content. Maybe we'll cover that story in a video of its own, because I thought that was kind of an interesting story. So let's talk a little bit about layoffs and the tech industry. Thus far this year, we've had 73 different tech companies who have laid off over 50,000 workers. So the most recent company in the news for the tech layoffs is Spotify. Spotify has slashed 600 workers, which amounts to 6% of their headcount. And here's something that I thought was funny. I saw I think it was a Reddit post yesterday. It was either a Reddit post or a Twitter thread about this yesterday. And everybody was kind of bashing Spotify for being greedy, and why doesn't the CEO just take less money instead of laying people off? And, now everybody hates Joe Rogan. So, if they hadn't paid Joe Rogan $100 million, they wouldn't have had to lay off all these people. Really, in my opinion, Joe Rogan is really the only draw of Spotify. I mean, I know some people who have Spotify. I don't use Spotify. And the only reason I ever head over to Spotify is if there's a particular Joe Rogan podcast that I actually want to listen to. But another thing that I thought was funny about this thread or Reddit post, whatever it was all these people were kind of bragging about how, I'm still getting Spotify for free. I graduated from college 7 years ago, but I'm using my college roommate's in-laws Spotify account. And I thought it's funny that you're blaming Joe Rogan and the CEO when you're, essentially, quote unquote, stealing from Spotify. Like, maybe if you actually paid for your Spotify subscription, these workers wouldn't have to be laid off. And that kind of leads into another story we're going to be covering today, which is this month Netflix is starting their crackdown on password sharing. But we'll hold off a little bit before we get into that story. So the Spotify stock in the last year has lost 73% since peaking in 2021. The CEO says he takes full responsibility for poor hiring and management decisions. And that's kind of a reason of a lot of the layoffs that we're seeing in tech. I believe Spotify, about 20% of their entire staff was hired between 2021 and 2022. And this is kind of a trend that we saw among a lot of tech companies, right? Like, tech companies were going on crazy hiring sprees, thinking that this Mexican beer cough, uptick in business was going to last forever, and it isn't. That kind of brings us to the next part of this story I wanted to talk about. So, with the recent Google layoffs, Amazon layoffs, Facebook layoffs, I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen these videos on TikTok, like a day in the life of a product manager at Meta, a day in the life, of someone who works at Twitter, a day in the life as a consultant. And in these videos, people typically do no work at all. They head into the office at 9, 10, 11 o'clock. They go get a coffee. They sit on the rooftop for a little bit. They go to the meditation room. They go get some more coffee. They go get some snacks. They vibe a little bit. They look cute. Maybe they have a meeting in the afternoon with their team leader. Then they, go get another coffee. Basically, people making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year for not doing a whole lot of work. So it's kind of funny when you see on like Twitter all these people making their videos about how I was laid off from Google, I was laid off from Facebook, I was laid off from Twitter. And these people aren't getting a lot of sympathy because you have people out there who have actual real jobs, who bust their butts and work really hard. And they see these people on TikTok who make 3, 4, 5, 6 times what they do, and do almost no work at all. So these people aren't getting a lot of sympathy. I saw a video yesterday. I got laid off by Google, and whereas most people get laid off and they're freaking out, they're trying to find a new job, they're trying to figure out where they can cut costs. This girl went to Disney World and ate every snack in the park to make herself feel better. So these tech workers getting laid off aren't getting a lot of sympathy. But I saw another thing come up, which is called the Hot Waitress Index, or the Attractive Waitress Index. And here's kind of the idea behind that. So there's kind of this idea out there, and this is probably more fun than it is realistic. And if it is realistic, it's probably only true for like San Francisco, San Jose, the Bay Area, Silicon Valley, maybe Seattle, Austin, Texas, some areas of the country where you have tech hubs. But here's the idea of the Hot Waitress Index. So the idea being is when the economy is doing well, attractive people, attractive women can wind up getting themselves really good jobs at really good companies for really good pay because, people, there's plenty of VC money coming in. There's cheap money. Money's flowing at these companies. Good times are abound. These companies tend to dress up their offices, right? They have cool hanging chairs and egg chairs and weird displays and bars and coffee shops and wine dispensers. And if you're going to dress up the walls of the office, and if you're going to dress up the office spaces, why not get some eye candy in the office as well? So your office managers are attractive. You hire a bunch of hot girls to be project managers. You hire a bunch of hot girls to work in HR or recruiting or the diversity and inclusion department. And, during good times, this is fine. But when the economy turns, when the market turns, and when the bad time comes, these people are going to be the first ones let go. And if you guys watch these TikTok videos where, these girls are doing nothing all day, they're typically attractive women. I remember seeing another video a while back about a day in the life, and it was basically girls hanging out poolside in, somewhere in Mexico. And they had their laptops by their chairs. But, we all know that you can't see shit on a laptop screen in the bright midday sun on the beach or at a pool. So how much work are these girls actually doing? Probably not much. And all these people kind of bragged about, oh, we have these awesome jobs. We don't do any work. We're just hanging out. But again, when times turn bad, these are going to be the first people let go. And these people who during good times could get jobs at FANG companies, during bad times, they're not going to be able to do that. They're going to wind up going to get a job at a restaurant, and you're going to see more hot waitresses or more attractive waitresses. So this is the idea of the attractive waitress indicator, or the Hot Waitress Indicator. And I've seen this being discussed online a little bit lately. If you guys live in one of those kind of tech markets and you see this to be true, let me know. But I thought that was kind of interesting. Going more into the story of layoffs, a gentleman by the name of Gene Munster, a managing partner at Deepwater Asset Management, a tech venture capital company, says that he's expecting tech companies to cut another 15 to 20% of the headcount in the next 3 to 6 months. Many companies saw upwards of 20 to 30% of their entire staff hired between 2020 and today. One of the few companies that didn't go on a crazy hiring spree is Apple. They're kind of a standout who's not doing layoffs, but most other companies kind of went crazy over the past 2 or 3 years and are having to trim their payroll. A couple other layoffs in the news. Spotify, again, laid off 600. InMobi, laid off 50. Booktopia, laid off 30. And then kind of companies who laid off but didn't announce the numbers or percentage of their company that was laid off include Uncounted, Camp K-12, Genesis, Yext, and Bucks. And these are just tech layoffs, and these are just from yesterday. So next story of the day, Netflix confirms they'll be cracking down on password sharing. They've been, talking about this for a long time. Netflix estimates that there are 100 million accounts that are sharing. So basically, there's potentially 100 million more customers out there that they don't have because these people are piggybacking off other people's accounts. I guess the crackdowns have been kind of in beta testing. Netflix started in Latin America, but this month they're going to be rolling these policies out to the U.S. And it's not clear. Netflix isn't telling how they're going to tell if you're piggybacking off somebody else's Netflix account. They're likely not going to tell because they don't want you to know how to get around on it. A lot of people are saying they could do it based by IP address, but a lot of people use Netflix from a variety of areas. Some people don't have static IP addresses. Some people, they log into Netflix at Airbnbs they check into. They log into Netflix at a family member's house. If they travel for business, they're logging into Netflix from various hotels. So that wouldn't really work. I think what's probably more likely, and what some people have reported seeing, is that if you log into your Netflix account from a new IP address or a new location, Netflix is going to prompt you to give them a 4-digit PIN code. This PIN code is going to come to you over text or email, And I'm guessing more than anything, this is probably going to try to annoy people into getting their own Netflix account. Like, for example, if my parents piggyback off my Netflix account, which I do, that, it's kind of funny. My parents are on my account, my sister's on my account. I got a couple friends who use my account, and occasionally me and my girlfriend will try to log on to watch something, and it'll say too many people are using your Netflix account, and then I always wind up having to reset my password and kick everybody off, and then everyone's asking for my password again. But think about if all these people piggybacking off my Netflix account, if every time they tried to log in, they were having to text me and be like, hey, Johnny, man, can I get the code for Netflix? And I'm having to text them back. Eventually, either they're going to get annoyed, they're going to feel bad about bothering me, or I'm going to get annoyed with them texting me all the time for Netflix PIN codes. And these people eventually will wind up getting their own accounts. I think one thing Netflix is doing, if you have family members piggybacking off an account, they won't necessarily have to get their own account. What can happen is I believe you can pay like $3.99 or $4.99 extra to get a couple extra users on your account. But we're likely going to see that start rolling out here in February of 2023. New York City, Chase Bank is locking up ATM machines at 5 p.m. due to crime and vagrancy. So you know how a lot of banks, even though the bank is locked or even though the bank is closed, you can go into like the vestibule at the front, especially in like cities and kind of more urban areas. But you can actually go into the vestibule at the front. You swipe your ATM card to get in. Once you get in, you can take out cash and then you can leave. Well, people are stealing ATM machines. People are breaking into ATM machines. And people are getting into these vestibules and sleeping there, homeless people and things like that. And so Chase Bank is having to lock up their ATM machines at 5 p.m. This is kind of silly, right? Like the whole point of an ATM machine is you can access your money or you can go to the ATM machine even when the bank is closed. And now the ATMs are closing at banking hours. And it just kind of goes to show, how I don't want to say society is crumbling and be overly doom and gloom. But, New York City, you can't even go to an ATM machine because, the crime is that out of control. The Biden administration and the Department of Justice are still fighting to try to bring back face masks on planes. This despite there being little to no evidence that they work. And this despite, once the masks were removed on planes, we didn't see a bunch of flight cancellations. We didn't see a huge uptick in cases. And the public almost universally hated this. There's videos of on planes when it was announced that you no longer have to wear masks, that planes literally broke out in celebrations. People were cheering. People were singing. People don't want masks back, yet the Biden administration and the Department of Justice are trying to bring masks back on planes. Really, why? Zero Hedge had an article about labor hoarding. Labor hoarding is kind of a theory as to why we haven't seen more layoffs. Companies are hoarding employees as they see it's going to be, we had the Great Resignation, we had quiet quitting. Companies are hoarding employees because they see it as being difficult to hire new employees if they lay people off. So you lay people off, eventually demand picks back up or your company's in better financial shape, and now you have to hire people back in a market where it's tough to hire people. So the Zero Hedge article basically says that companies are hoarding labor. And one thing that we've seen a number of hours people are working week to week has been consistently going down. So the idea being that companies are cutting hours and having people work less rather than laying them off entirely, and everybody's kind of hoarding labor. So if this labor hoarding comes to an end, we'll likely see a flurry of layoffs. George Soros put out a paper the other day talking about how the U.S. and NATO countries can go to war and use Eastern Europeans basically as cannon fodder. He said that the U.S. and NATO countries don't have the stomach for body bags coming home, but in Eastern Europe, Eastern Europeans, life is cheaper. Life isn't as valuable, and they're not going to be as turned off by having body bags come home. This kind of reminds me of that like South Park movie Team America, where they send all the black people to the front to basically be cannon fodder. This is basically what George Soros is doing with the Ukrainian population. Ukraine to date has lost over 100,000 soldiers, and that's only what they're telling us. The number is likely a lot higher. But that's kind of a sad story. Let's see. Dollar stores are the fastest growing retail segment. We've talked in a lot of these recent videos, a lot of people are shopping down. So people who used to shop at Trader Joe's or Whole Foods are now shopping at Aldi or Walmart or other discount grocers. But yeah, dollar stores are the fastest growing food retailer. Let's see, we got an article about Salesforce. Salesforce, prior to 2020, the company had 50,000. Okay, so this just kind of goes to show what a hiring spree tech companies went on. Prior to 2020, Salesforce had 50,000 employees. From 2020 to 2022, they hired another 30,000 employees. So again, the entire employee count was only 50,000. Just in the past 2 years, they've hired another 30,000 employees, bringing their total count up to 80,000. So then during a downturn, obviously a lot of these employees are going to wind up being let go. I guess a bunch of activist investors have bought into Salesforce, and it looks like they're going to have even more layoffs. Elon Musk's father came out the other day and said he's worried about Elon. He said his son doesn't realize he's making dangerous enemies. So is Elon Musk going to wind up suiciding himself? We'll have to wait and see. Deutsche Bank announced they're cutting bonuses by 40%. Nike announced that their flagship store in Seattle is closing down after 26 years. This is due to kind of all the crime and homelessness and all the other problems in a city like Seattle. I was out in Seattle last summer, and it's an absolute nightmare. Even down in the tourist areas, like down by the fish market, there were people openly cooking heroin and shooting up heroin, like right on the street where families are walking by, looking at the guys tossing fishes and things like that. So Nike is closing down their flagship store in Seattle after 26 years, and I think Amazon just announced that they're closing down one of their Seattle offices as well. And then the last story of the day is about TikTok. This article comes from Forbes, and TikTok is doing something that they're calling heating. What heating is, it's basically cheating. It's a manual process whereby employees at TikTok can override the algorithm and make certain people's TikToks or certain videos basically go viral. So employees are boosting their own TikTok posts and or boosting their family members and friends' videos. This is something, that we hear the term power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. If you look at these tech companies who have a lot of power, employees always wind up doing bad stuff. At Amazon, for example, Amazon was selling inside sales data to Amazon sellers. So an Amazon employee might charge a customer 10 grand, 15 grand to give them data on their competitors. The same thing has happened at Shopify. Anytime somebody has power in one of these tech companies and there's the ability to make money or gain clout or gain subscribers, people are going to take advantage of it. So yeah, apparently TikTok is going through this heating controversy where employees at TikTok are either taking bribe money or helping to boost their family members and friends' posts. Anyhow, guys, that's all I got for you guys today. If you guys enjoyed the video, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button down below. If you're not subscribed to the channel, click that subscribe button down below and ring the bell. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next video. Later, guys.